want to welcome everybody to the July Eye on Piscataway. We've had a very busy June and July so far. Tonight we have the swearing-in video of our newest captain, Michele Pilch, as well as the T-Ball award ceremony. And we had some clips from the Piscataway Senior Center picnic down at Riverside Park, as well as an update from Ward 4 from our Ward 4 Councilwoman, Michele Lombardi. And we have two special guests on the show tonight. We have our State Senator, Robert Smith, as well as our new county surrogate from North Brunswick, Claribel Cortes. And to close out the show, we also have the clips from the Lake Nelson 4th of July parade. Well, on behalf of the Township Council and myself, I want to congratulate Michele Pilch for getting ready to be sworn in as captain here in the Piscataway Police Department. I want to congratulate you and the rest of the department and all the command staff officers. Okay, repeat after me. I, Michele Pilch.
I, Michele Pilch.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support.
That I will support.
The Constitution.
The Constitution.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And the Constitution.
And the Constitution.
Of the State of New Jersey.
Of the State of New Jersey.
That I will bear true faith.
That I will bear true faith.
And to the allegiance to the same.
And allegiance to the same.
And to the governments established.
And to the governments established.
In the United States.
In the United States.
And in this state.
And in this state.
Under the authority of the people.
Under the authority of the people.
That I will faithfully.
That I will faithfully.
Impartially.
Impartially.
And justly.
And justly.
Perform all the duties.
Perform all the duties.
Of Office of Captain, Piscataway Police Department.
Of Office of Captain in the Piscataway Police Department.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay, congratulations there.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to yourself and to the Town Council for the opportunity to make these promotions. They are absolutely needed in the police department. This is a very difficult time in policing, as everybody knows. So we do need the help, and it is well deserved of Captain Pilch. It's an honor for me to be involved in promoting the first captain, female captain, in the Piscataway Police Department. So again, thank you, and be well.
I just want to say thank you. It is an honor to be the first female captain. It's an honor to be a captain in general. I want to thank the chief for being a great mentor to me, and I want to thank my husband and my family for all their support.
I want to welcome back our local state senator, Robert Smith, from the 17th Legislative District here on Eye on Piscataway, fondly known as Bob Smith. And it's June, and normally, historically, that's around the time that there's a lot of tussling going on in Trenton about the state budget. Although as we speak, the budget's soon to be adopted.
Actually,
has been adopted?
It has been adopted.
Well, so now that it's been adopted, Senator, why don't you talk a little bit about the state budget, because it's several billions of dollars there.
Absolutely. So first of all, it's the largest budget in the history of the state of New Jersey at $46.4 billion. And I can remember the days when it was in the 20s. All right, so
you're starting to date yourself.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But in any case, I think it's a pretty good budget. And I have my cheat sheet. Let me tell you why it's a good budget. First of all, it's very, very fiscally responsible. $7 billion of the money in this budget is going to fund our pension system. Our pension system has been underfunded for years.
And that's, I think, for the general public, that by putting extra money into funding, it has the potential of boosting the credit rating of the state of New Jersey.
Absolutely. So you get an additional benefit
Yeah.
in terms of your bond rating. On that same note, there's an additional $3.7 billion being used to pay down some of the state's existing debt. Roughly $2.5 billion would pay off existing debt, and then, and by the way, the estimate on that is we're going to save $500 million a year as a result of the better credit rating.
Yeah, and I think from what I heard yesterday is that the debt service that's being paid down through this budget is higher interest rate debt that's being paid down.
Right.
First, the lower rate where the state had to borrow during COVID.
Right. So again, another fiscally responsible and money-saving item for the taxpayers. And of that $3.7 billion that I was talking about, $1.2 billion is going for construction projects. So in other words, you won't need to borrow funds in order to go forward with the construction projects. You already have the money in the till. Again, saving the taxpayers money.
And that's a piece of the budget that is to be named later on what construction projects are going to be.
Yeah, but we have a huge list. You know, we have the same infrastructure problems as the rest of the country. And by the way, this will probably also help with whatever infrastructure package the federal government passes, because if you need matching funds or whatever.
That's the key. A lot of times you need matching funds.
So in the category of really good parts of the budget, we also have the return of the $500 rebate checks. And that was a promise that was made to the voters when we did that millionaire's tax. We said we're going to get the rebates up and running.
Now, is there a criteria that
there's always
a criteria?
There's always a criteria. And likewise, we're going to be helping retirees. There's a limit in the current law, except for this budget, was that retirees could shelter $100,000 of taxes per year from state income taxes. That's going up to $150,000.
Which is interesting because I think one of the reasons why we tend to lose retirees to the south or to Delaware is because of that fact.
Yep. We're also doing technology upgrades. One of the bad lessons of the pandemic was how hard it was for people to apply for workman's comp or unemployment aid. And the state knows it has a technology problem. Our computers are 20 to 40 years old. They don't talk to each other, in state government. So an effort will begin to start upgrading our computers and planning for a system-wide computer system.
Now, also, I don't think anybody anticipated that many people applying for unemployment too.
Right. Planning for a pandemic.
It just shows you, like, on certain government services, whether it's at the state or local level, like, you don't anticipate a total implosion all at once.
Right. So this showed, we knew our system was weak, but this really showed how bad it was. And we really need to replace the system. So we're going to begin undertaking that as we go into this new budget. Also, too, for parents out there, we're now going to have 529 plans. A 529 plan, you can put savings together for your children's
higher education.
Right. Didn't really have it before. And you can take up to a $10,000 deduction to do that. And of course, there are limitations in terms of the income of the individual, but you now have 529 plans in New Jersey, which is a big plus. We have some property tax relief. Homeowners can receive up to property tax relief through the Homestead Benefit Program that could see their credits increase by another $130. So a little help there. So overall, and I'm just giving you a couple of the highlights, overall we think it's a really good budget, and we've put some money away in a rainy day fund. So we're hoping that next year's budget is not going to see a cliff. We're hopefully going to keep it going. One of the reasons we have two reasons why we had so much money. All right, and you're not hearing people scream about the budget. One was the federal help that we've received, and which we're going to utilize to some extent in this budget. And the other is that as the pandemic started to ease up, we ended up with a tremendous amount of tax returns on income. So hopefully that will continue. Hopefully we can, not next year, because we know what next year's the budget's going to be like for the next 12 months, but hopefully when we have to do a new budget, we're not going to be running into any headwinds.
You know, what you just said is there's a lot of national economists really scratching their heads about this, because the template before that they were using was from the 2008 crash of the economy, and where you had households losing trillions of dollars worth of revenue, but in this case, for whatever reason, a lot of households ended up gaining money, and what they're alluding to is that there was nowhere to spend the money. Well, what money they were getting, there was nowhere to spend it because everything was shut down. So there was a built-up cash reserve of a lot of households now here, and thus market value and taxes and stock market going up, and thus that's why state budget and things like, which is very interesting. Which is going to, I'm sure this is going to be a course class or whatever on the economy. Yep. When something like, because you know, if it ever happens again, you know, they want to be prepared. So,
well, I personally think that at the national level we are getting the help that we need to recover, and you know, you see it with the unemployment numbers going down every month. God willing, we're going to get through it okay.
Where you see a lot of the southern states now wanting to eliminate the supplemental federal help on the unemployment, where does the state of New Jersey stand on that issue?
I have not heard that we're looking to eliminate it. In fact, we've embraced it. Yeah. We think it's for the long-term good of our citizens. And, you know, while we're talking about coming out of the pandemic, there's still a lot of people who have been severely hurt. They've lost their jobs, or they're not as healthy as they used to be, and we think it's a good idea to keep it in New Jersey.
I had a discussion with another official from another community, and one of the things is that we're bracing for what we found out through the 2008 economy crash is that towns and cities and counties in the states really didn't feel the full brunt of it until 2 years later, because the way tax appeals worked their way through the system.
Right.
And in this case, you have a lot of jobs that aren't coming back.
Right.
You know, because of whether now, you know, businesses are seeing they can get away with not having employees come to the offices.
Right.
They may downsize their square footage footprint. They've invested more money in technology, just like you were just mentioning how the state unemployment technology system, in order to make it work more efficiently. Thus, sometimes you might not need as many people.
Right.
And you know, the economy is probably forever changed now.
No question. Well, it's a different world. Certainly, when you talk about employees going to offices, and that's I have to compliment you and your government, because one of the things you've been trying to do for the last 4 or 5 years is to repurpose office buildings which were empty, and we're getting continuous tax appeals. So by repurposing them, we have a lot of new and exciting things like retro fitness. You know, the community center is not a competitor, but they have
different niche market.
Different niche market for sure, but you know, you've FW Webb on Centennial Avenue. You know, there's just a pile of them that you've done that I think have made the community's economy more vibrant, and plenty of jobs. Yeah,
and I think part of the thing is that I know there was some of the business owners who were complaining that they can't get people back to work or whatever, but everybody's family household situation is different. And you know, you don't know what their mortgage is. You don't know, you know, there's the potential of people not defaulting on their mortgages. You know, that's a whole nother ancillary question that's going to be answered in the next 18 months.
Oh yeah, and some of the answers are going to be very brutal. But I think the group that was hurt the most, women. Yeah. And the reason being, as our schools shut down, or as they became remote, women, moms have stayed home. You know, if they had an out of the home job, they stayed home to take care of their kids. And you know, there were really no daycare or alternatives, So I think the section of the economy where women had a huge hand in moving the economy ahead, they were dramatically impacted by the pandemic. With schools opening in September, hopefully that's going to unleash a whole new set of workers as well.
And we're going to hope that there's going to be some sense of normalcy going back for the local economy and the state economy as a whole.
Right.
Because it's very worrisome. Anytime I see in town, a sign for vacancy rate and/or office square footage available, that means we're not getting taxes. General public, when you see signs like that, that's not a good thing.
Right.
But, there's never going to be 100% occupancy in any community in the state of New Jersey. But you want to try to keep it at
Minimum.
Minimal at best. And that's how you really, as you just alluded to, Senator, towns and cities that really rethink out of the box on their industrial, their commercial, and their rateable-based corridor for the communities. If you think it's just going to stay the same as it was 10, 15 years ago, it's never going to happen.
New world.
There was a poll that was just released by, I think Eagleton just did it, that was released a day or so ago, that most New Jerseyans view that like 10 to 15% or even 20% are never going to go back to the office again.
Could easily be.
Which has me frightened, because we have a lot of office square footage in the town, and then you have all the towns and communities along the 287 corridor here in central New Jersey.
In the same boat. Yep.
In the same boat. So it is a very good cause thing to talk about. It's good that the state and the national government is recognizing that the economy is forever changed and that there needs to be some help. And unfortunately, on Capitol Hill in Washington, there's a segment of the thought processes they don't feel that there should be any help, which I disagree with. But
of course,
that's for another show. So.
Yes, it is, and a much longer one.
A much longer one. So anyway, do you want to talk about some initiatives?
Yes.
For those folks that don't know, Senator Smith chairs the Senate Environmental Committee, and I think maybe you might just get an overview of what the jurisdiction of your committee is.
So it's actually environment and energy,
okay.
All right, which are so closely related. What we're dealing with today, Mayor, is the existential threat to humanity from global climate change. Now, there may be some listeners who say, oh, this is hocus pocus or whatever. It's not. Take a look at last year. We had half of the United States from the West Coast going east burning down. Australia was burning down last year as well. And right now we're looking to in a heat wave in New Jersey, which is going to be brutal. But it's not just the heat. Several weeks ago, we had this tropical storm go from Alabama to the East Coast. It dropped 15 inches of rain. So the weather has gotten absolutely crazy. Greenland is now green because it used to be covered with ice. It's not covered with ice anymore. The poles are calving large blocks of ice into the seas. DEP just did a report on the impact on New Jersey from global climate change, and they're talking about the sea level rise of 5 feet. Highland Park or Piscataway would become the new beach for New Jersey. So this is really, really serious
So
stuff.
in other words, I should wait that Piscataway would be beachfront property?
It might be beachfront property, only I can't tell you.
I don't want to be.
I can't tell you where the shoreline's going to be.
I'm not being sarcastic, but there is some truth there. And you said that the way the climate's changing. Just look, as well as we're in a heat wave, the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, and Oregon. I didn't realize this, that almost 80% of the residential homes in Washington State don't have air conditioning.
Right.
So when they get
they never needed it.
They never needed it.
But they had a 112-degree day the other day, and I also saw in Canada a 118-degree day.
That's pretty impressive.
Well, it should really just bring it to in front of our face that this is a real problem. Now, the solution, or one solution, is to electrify everything, including transportation, but make the source of the electricity renewables, wind, solar, nuclear as well. So you have energy generation that doesn't generate more carbon dioxide. That's the biggest problem. It's the greenhouse effect. So we're trying aggressively, and in my committee in particular, to try and address those problems. So, for example, the governor has already signed, and this is in the last month, last 30 days, he already signed a bill to facilitate recharging infrastructure. So as we buy more and more EVs, electric vehicles, we want to, and especially hopefully if there's an infrastructure package with a significant amount of federal money, we
And-
want to be ready to go.
Chairman, our local congressman, who chairs the Energy Commerce Committee at the national level,
Frank Pallone.
is going to have a lot of say in that.
Absolutely. So what the recharging infrastructure bill does, and it's signed into law, is it accelerates the approval process. Instead of it makes recharging infrastructure a permitted accessory use in all zones, every place in New Jersey. So you now don't have a zoning issue. And then the way in which it gets processed, the application is through a zoning permit. And the only thing that would hold it up is there was some kind of a safety issue, some kind of a code violation. Otherwise, go to it. Put in your charging infrastructure. And when you think about how many buildings are going to will be retrofitted and so on, this is a good thing that we're accelerating that process.
Hold on, let's hold
Yeah,
that thought.
sure.
Just locally here, within the last 4+ years, we've had a requirement of our ordinance that, depending upon what addition or square footage you build, whether it's a commercial or
Right.
industrial quarter, you have to provide for charging stations.
That's true.
And so now there is a small network within our own community that's being built out. And that was part of the issue that critics would say that there's not enough charging stations for
Right.
people with electric charging. Like, for instance, I just look at our own community center. We have 6 charging stations there. We built it with infrastructure for up to 12. So yesterday I was driving by and 6 of the cars, all 6 were being used.
Right.
Right there, which
Tells you
would
that
like
there's
to
a
think
need. Right.
There's a need, and people now know if they want to go to the community center, if you're a member, you could charge up free of charge right there while you're working out.
And the charging infrastructure bill also mandates a number of charging stations for any mixed-use development. If you're building any condos or commercial, you're going to have to put in some charging and have the potential to expand it.
Yes.
So you'll wire it to be
That's the key,
EV ready.
is to proper planning. It's not, you're just going to not put one station. It's cheaper to wire it up for double or triple what you know, because once the conduit's in the ground, it's a lot cheaper.
Absolutely. So we think that was a good thing. And by the way, a separate bill, I think it's done in both houses. I don't know if the governor signed it yet, but any new warehouses have to be built solar ready.
Okay.
So they're going to be all wired up as well.
That ought to make the electrical union folks happy.
Well, I've changed the name of the IBEW from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers to the International Brotherhood of Environmental Warriors, because they're leading the change.
Yeah.
I mean, which leads to 2 other bills that are up for a vote at the next Senate session, which is dual-use solar and grid-scale solar. Both of them come forward due to the fact that we can't meet the goals of New Jersey's energy master plan the way the law is now. And the reason for that is that back in 2012 or 13, Governor Chris Christie, as a requirement for re-upping the SREC program, solar renewable energy
Yeah, I was just going to
credits.
say, why don't you
What
mention
is
what
that?
the
Yeah. Well,
the
it's
acronym,
been- it's
most
been our-
people don't know what the acronym
Yeah,
means.
it's our stimulus for getting solar built. But one of the things he did in that bill was to say solar panels are limited to roofs, brownfields, sanitary landfills. And the problem is that there's just not enough. There's not enough. Even though if I could get solar on warehouse roofs,
That'll be a lot.
yeah, that'll be a lot. But right now, there's not enough land that's available. So pointing that out, that we can't meet our goals, we are trying to find ways to use other land in New Jersey. And the one approach is called dual use. Dual use means that you'll do farming and solar together. And the difference is, instead of building solar panels close to the ground, you'll now build the solar panels 12 feet in the air. You'll have fewer of them, but you can have cattle grazing, blueberries.
Okay.
You can do agriculture underneath. So in effect, you don't take the land off the agricultural inventory, and the farmer gets a chance to make a little income, which helps the farmer to stay as a farmer. So in the long-term goals of even open space and farmland preservation, it works. So that bill, I believe, will be passed very shortly and signed by the governor almost immediately. And it also has associated with it $2 million in the state budget for the Rutgers Agricultural Station to do research on solar on farms for the next 3 years, so they can advise farmers how to do it, best way to do it, how does it work, you know, the various uses that would work out the best. And they point out to me that solar in North Jersey farms could be different than solar on South Jersey farms. So,
And you're probably saying, well, why is Rutgers involved? Because they have a cooperative extension service,
Right.
Cook College, but more importantly, is the university has a lot of land holdings throughout the state and the agricultural industry.
right. But I'll tell you that the solar developers have already offered their land to Rutgers to do the experiments and find the best way to do it. So that's dual use solar, farming and solar together. The other is grid scale solar, and grid scale solar means that it's big solar. You're talking about maybe 20 acres of solar in one area. The controversy that's been associated with it is, what land do you use? And the Department of Agriculture is saying stay away from ADAs, which are agricultural development areas, which have the very best soils. And what this bill does is to compromise that. Up to 2.5% of the ADA land could be used in conjunction with other lands. So, and what I try to point out, even on grid scale, the land is not going for a new warehouse.
Yeah.
The land is not going for a new shopping center or a condo. It's not any building that's 10 stories high. In effect, the land can be brought back to agriculture when the solar panels are removed. And if you remember, well, you don't remember, but in colonial times, the substitute for fertilizers was letting the land lay fallow for years.
Yeah, they would do like a couple of years.
So this will recharge the soil
It's
as well.
no different than, like, say, up at Green Acres, you try to not play soccer on several years in a row on one field. You try to give the field a rest.
Rotate it, yeah. So anyway, both of those bills are moving ahead, and I expect them to be signed by the governor very shortly, in the summer months. And they're going to do a lot for the solar industry and helping us to get renewable energy as opposed to carbon-based energy, burning oil and coal.
Now, I saw where PSE&G announced that they were going to try to do a carbon.
They bought 25% of some of the offshore wind facilities.
Okay.
I think 25% of Ørsted.
Now, why is, I know after reading it, why is it that New Jersey is so, everybody's hot and heavy about the wind farms off the coast?
Well, it's not the politicians in Trenton.
Yeah.
Somebody said if we put a wind turbine in front of the State House at the corridor, we'd get lots of electricity. But the truth of the matter is that our offshore wind is huge. It's one of the windiest places on the planet. So it'll be a great source of wind energy. And, I envision someday large wind farms pretty far off the coast, 30 to 50 miles off the coast. So it's not going to get in anybody's view very much, but it will give us.
It won't be like a thing where the Kennedy family was bucking up by Martha's Vineyard, where they didn't want this farm up there.
There's always resistance, but this is existential. I mean, really, if you take a look at the big picture, we really have to start addressing global climate change in a serious way, or we're all going to be a crisp piece of bacon.
Well, I got to tell you, as being this week, as we're taping here for the show, being 100 degrees each day for 3 days, that doesn't happen too often in New Jersey, especially other parts of the country that it's unforeseen getting that. There's no doubt that there's a significant change going on in the world as a whole. There was a very large article in the New York Times and the Washington Post about how Lake Mead is running out of water, and that supplies a good chunk of the drinking water for state of California, Arizona, and all the compact states out there, and that there's not going to be enough water to run the Hoover Dam, which provides power for the city of Las Vegas.
And lots of litigation between the states about who has what water, which, by the way, reflects back on a very good thing that New Jersey did 11 years ago, which was the Highlands Act, and also the Pinelands Act. That preserved literally billions of gallons of water under the Pinelands. And in the Highlands case, which supplies half of the water in New Jersey, the preservation efforts there will go a long way. But if you have 118-degree days, none of that's going to matter. We've really got to electrify everything to have any success. And by the way, Mayor, one of the things I don't do on this show, which I really should do, our residents and citizens should know that my legislative office is in Piscataway, all right, 216 Stelton Road, and phone number 732-752-0770, because we're here to serve. And if people have problems with their state government, or you have an issue you want to talk to us about, we would appreciate the cards and letters or the phone calls.
So with that, Senator, I'd like to thank you for stopping by Ion Piscataway. Good luck and continue the great work down in Trenton, along with your colleagues Joe Danielson and Joe Egan down on the Assembly side. And we look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure being here.
I want to welcome our viewership back, and we are fortunate enough to have in studio today the newly minted Middlesex County Surrogate, Claribel Cortes of North Brunswick, who took over for Kevin Hoagland, who retired as this county surrogate. And I know she's just been in the last several months getting her feet wet, being a surrogate. We've heard nothing but great things from township residents that have used the surrogate's office. But for those lay people out in TV land who don't know what the surrogate's office is, so maybe, Claribel, maybe what you could do is give a little bit about your background and then a little bit about the surrogate's office and then maybe one or two initiatives, because we're only going to have about 10 or 11 minutes there, because I don't want to get in trouble with the producer. So take it away, Claribel.
No worries. So thank you, first of all, for having me. This is a great opportunity. It's an honor. So my background is mainly in television, broadcast television. So I worked with ABC News, the Associated Press, for over 20 years. I managed global teams, but mostly I was a community advocate as well. So I was always that person who, if a grandmother needed help because her landlord was not turning on her heat, I was a person saying, let's go ahead and cover this story. So while I was a journalist, I was also an advocate. So it was a smooth transition when I went into politics and became a councilwoman first, and then surrogate.
Well, that was a kind of even though you said it was smooth, I mean, normally you're out in the public venue and stuff like, sometimes people don't want to get involved in the nitty-gritty stuff of actually doing the minutia of the actual work of being an elected official or somebody behind the scenes. So some people just like being what they call sometimes a show horse instead of a workhorse. But in your case, you want to be both.
Well, I found a need in the community, and especially after the 2016 election, I couldn't sit idle anymore, and I needed to do more in my community, which is why I decided to run for office.
And we've noticed that throughout Middlesex County, we've had a lot of people said after certain elections, they said, maybe I want to spend some time getting involved in my local community. But with that being said, talk a little bit about the Surrogate's office. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know what the Surrogate's office does until there's an unfortunate issue within their family. So take it away.
So that's definitely one of the initiatives that we want to do. We want to bring more awareness to the community. So we are really advocates for the community, and we help them when they need it the most. So when someone has passed away, we help them probate wills, we help them settle estates. We also help with guardianships of incapacitated adults.
And I want to hold that comment right there. I, as mayor, a lot of times, and you as a former council member in North Brunswick, run into families where you've had parents who have adult children who, now adults who will more than likely not be able to take care of themselves, if something happens with the parents. And I've noticed that there's a lot of folks out there that have those family issues that they're very concerned about who's going to be watching my adult child, if I meet my maker. And the Surrogate's office sort of steps into the breach there.
Yes, we do. And we help them set up the plans and make sure that they have everything in order. It's a smooth transition for some parents. Sometimes it's not for others, but we're there for them every step of the way.
And I think a lot of times, a lot of lay people don't necessarily know to have maybe proper planning.
Yes.
And this gets an issue such as that gets thrusted upon maybe not necessarily the lone spouse or significant person in that individual's lives to deal with it, but it's the extended family.
That's right.
On who's going to have guardianship, who's going to handle this, who's going to handle that. And it's something that I guess we don't necessarily think about it or take the time and effort to say maybe go see an attorney to set up rules and regs governing on how you would like things done when you pass on. And unfortunately, a lot of times it ends up in a surrogate's office to be the referee.
Exactly. And I do want to segue a little bit into something else regarding wills. I discovered, I'm a big data person, so I feel like in order to help the community, you need to know where you stand right now. And 60% of Middlesex County residents do not have wills.
Yeah.
And
that is astounding.
yes, it is. And it definitely brings a lot more heartache to a family member who's already grieving.
Yeah.
Now, only that, it's very costly if you have to end up in the surrogate's office without a will, and it takes a lot more time.
Well, as you know, my wife sort of deals in that in a profession, being a licensed funeral director here in the state of New Jersey. And she deals with that on a basis because when sometimes death does happen, there's no will involved, there's no insurance, this, that. And a lot of it ends up being over to the surrogate's office. And, it's just astounding that the statistic that you just mentioned, 60%. For those folks out there, if you don't have a will, it doesn't require a lot to get it. Just go see an attorney, have some conceptual idea what you want to do with your assets and or if you have young children or who's going to be the surrogate, who's going to parent them. You'd be surprised how much easier it may be for the family if there's some sense of direction that the surrogate or the courts know what your intention was. I mean, you don't want to leave things left to the courts to decide on what your family's wishes may or may not be.
Agreed, definitely. And one of the things that we find is that I think no one wants to talk about death, and that's one of the hardest things I think that we find. But if COVID has taught us anything, is that death doesn't discriminate, and we need to have everything in order.
And you hit it right on the head with the pandemic raging last year and to a certain extent into 2021. There was just people that were very healthy, and then all of a sudden became ill, and the next thing you know, they're on a respirator, and nobody knows, or they don't have any do not resuscitate or anything like that, and next thing you know, people are having to run to court and try to figure out, well, what's my next step? What's my legal options? And you really don't see that until it's thrust upon you.
That's correct.
And a little bit of planning goes a long way in people's lives. It doesn't take that long. I know when when my father became older in life, I was the primary caregiver and had, between my brother and I, he had joint, say whatever we were as far as the medical and stuff and decisions and stuff like that. But at least we knew, like in our situation with our dad, between my brother and I, we were the ones who were the caregivers along with my sister. So everybody knew the rules of the road, whose responsibility was what when one of our parents or both parents, had a situation. But unfortunately, as you just said, 60%, not many families are prepared for that eventuality, because it will come at some point.
Indeed, and the scarier part is that 58% of those people have kids.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the thing that always concerns me. And I know you have children, and I have children, and that I'm always concerned that, you always wonder, well, who's going to be there to watch out? Who's going to manage the money? Are they going to have a roof over their head? Is their higher education going to be taken care of? What schooling? Who's going to make that decision? The medical decisions for, especially the minors.
Agreed.
And that must be a tough decision when you deal with families like that.
It definitely is, but we have laws that we follow. So again, if you don't have a will, the state decides, and then you have to go to court. But we do our best to help people when they're in need. So what I'm going to do with the office is continue an awareness campaign. So, use my communications background, my broadcast background. Webinars are the rage now, and I don't think they're going away. So we want to reach the community where they are. So we're definitely going to do a campaign throughout all our senior centers, also reach our parents, our PTOs, even our young adults. If you own a car, you need a will, because who's that car going to go to?
Yeah.
If you have an apartment, who's going to access your apartment if God forbid?
Who's your Facebook account going to go to?
Exactly. So there's a lot of things that you need to go ahead and take care of.
Instagram account,
Exactly.
your digital footprint. Who's going to be in control of that?
That's correct. Yeah. So you don't want to think about it, but you have to.
So I want to thank the newly minted county surrogate for stopping by for a few moments on I Am Piscataway here at Claribel Cortes of North Brunswick. But more importantly, I know in the past the county surrogate's office has worked with partnership with Piscataway Township to sometime have roving office days in Piscataway, and that offer still stands for you to stop by with your staff here in Piscataway. And as a matter of fact, we could probably set you up in one of the rooms over at the new community center, which is more of a spacious office over there to handle issues like that. So thank you very much, and we'd love to have you back for a full meeting time to have some other guests on too.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, hello. I'm out here on Riverview Avenue at River Road, across the street from the Greek Orthodox, St. George Greek Orthodox Church. And I'm out here with Councilmember Michele Lombardi, who represents this area. And we're talking about continue highlighting some of the reconstruction of the infrastructure here in Piscataway Township. And we want to talk about some of the challenges that are ongoing when the Township Engineering Department or Public Works Department goes in and starts to reconstruct the street. As you can see, as the councilwoman was just pointing out to me, the grade difference of what the roadway was versus what it's going to be when it's finished. So I don't know if we'll get some pictures of this, of all the shale, the level of the driveways, and we're gonna walk up here. I guess what we could do is kind of walk up here, and I know this was one of your high priority streets, Councilwoman, all these years, and we had completed Mayfield Lane several years back, working with the County Engineering Department to do the culvert, and then last year we finished Kroger Lane across the street, and then this year we're starting the engineering design for the sewer upgrade on Golf Links. So a good chunk of these streets that are in the 4th Ward in the Rutgers Stadium area are all about in the process of several years to be reconstructed.
Well, it's always nice to see infrastructure improvements going on in town. Just like you improve your home, you improve the things around your house and where you live. Us doing infrastructure improvements to the community is an investment in our community, just like it's an investment in your home. So I always say, when it comes to an infrastructure improvement, it's
Yeah.
a win-win situation. Just like you upgrade your home, we're upgrading the community.
Yeah. And when the town spends money, bonds out for these long-term, these improvements have got to last anywhere from 25 to 30 years before we go back and mill and pave. So this really is a generational investment
Absolutely.
in the neighborhoods, because if you look at, we have more than 400 to 500 roadway miles in Piscataway Township. So if you're only reconstructing 15 miles a year, you do the math. I mean, it may take 30, 40 years to get to come back around the cycle, because we only have X amount of dollars to go around. So I thought what we'd do is we'll take a little quick walk up here and show some of the challenges. This roadway is very unique engineering, and we had a lot of big problems out here, because if you look at the elevations of the properties here versus the road, just look at the cut in the roadway.
Yeah.
That PVC piping is the sanitary sewer lateral for that house right there. And then you'll look at there's water service and gas service. So when you're widening a road like this that never had a true width of a cartway, you have to work with the utility companies to move all these utilities back, as well as the sidewalks. So you see right now all the block work that's lined up, because there's going to be a retaining wall there in order to shore up the front property as well as the walkway here. So this is an extremely expensive project. I think this was in the $2 million range for this road out here because of all the nuances. And then we had the new stormwater management that we had to take care of in the roadway. There's actually collection systems that are in the roadway that filters the waterway before it goes. So, Councilwoman, do you have anything to say?
No, as usual, he's the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
He's telling you about the sewers
Yeah.
and all of the water pieces. But once all of that beautiful block over there is done and the retaining walls are all put up, it really will beautify this neighborhood.
Yeah. And I first of all, I want to thank the residents out here for putting up for this inconvenience.
It's definitely an
Yeah.
inconvenience when it's being done. But when it is done, everybody will
Yeah.
see the sidewalk and the walkability just is a great improvement to this neighborhood.
And especially in this neighborhood because of the proximity to Rutgers Stadium.
Absolutely. Johnson's Park.
Johnson's Park and everything. So what we're slowly throughout the town is when we work with the county commissioners and the county engineering department, everything that's tied into River Road now, we're adding sidewalks
Yeah.
in and bike lanes in to connect into the Johnson's Park network system, as well as the Route 18 multi-use path. As you see, if you go around town, when you see the businesses on Centennial Avenue now, they're doing multi-use paths outside of it. All that is connecting into an interconnected system that we're putting together. Bits and pieces, but a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are finally starting to come together.
And during the virus, you really saw how many people
Yes.
got out and used all of the walking areas in town. So walkability is definitely a very great luxury.
Yeah. So we're going to walk up a little further here to where the block work. So you could kind of see where the new sidewalk's going right here, and basically the leveling of the roadway. The roadway is going to be dropping by a foot right here. So this is all got to get dug out to meet where the new sidewalk is. So the retaining wall is actually sitting on the new sidewalk that was poured, so out of the roadway. So the roadway width is going to be a true 30-foot cartway. A standard township street is 30 feet curb to curb out there. And then in theory, if you have sidewalks out there. But I mean, you can see in front of this house right here, the sanitary sewer, the gas connection. You have the water connection over here. I mean, just look at it. This is contractors having to go through shale right here. This is all block work. So you can see right here, this is all the utility services for this house, and then times that by 8 to 10 houses along this side of the roadway. That's why the cost of infrastructure improvements cost a lot of money, especially when you have to start moving a lot of these services away from the road, out of the roadway. So, but the good news is that once this is done and they're all refitted up, the last couple generations out there because it's all the new connections out there. But we are at this point. We're going to take a quick look up to show the midpoint of the roadway where the basing's done, and then we're going to take a ride over to Brotherhood Street, which is another major reconstruction project.
That whole area
over
has
there,
been having.
So let's go take a walk up the top half of Riverview. Okay, we're at the intersection now, Stafford Drive and Riverview Avenue. So as they're going to show you here with the cameras, this is what they call the base of the roadway. So you did get some film before of a pipe of some of the old infrastructure that's being taken out of here that's decayed. And the good news is it should last another 50 years out here. But once this is all finished, this will look almost identical to what Mayfield Lane and Kroger Lane looks like out here. So this is hoping within the next month or so, by September 1st, we're hoping to have this all finished out here for the residents just in time for when school opens back up.
So the whole street you're planning to be
The
done?
whole street is being reconstructed.
Yeah, all right. So the time frame being?
We're shooting for September timeframe to have everything completed.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
You know, in theory, that's what we should have. But you know, one of the other problems that we have is now with all the infrastructure work that's going on in the state with the
Hard to get
contractors, they're jumping from job to job, and that becomes a management issue that we're having to deal with right now.
And difficult to get product also.
That's right,
Yeah.
and costs.
Yeah.
That's a major factor.
Absolutely.
So, but hopefully the neighborhood will be happy when this is finished. So.
Sure.
So with that, we're going to go take a quick look over at Brotherhood Street. Okay, we're now out here with Councilman Michele Lombardi back on Brotherhood Street.
Yeah.
And I know this street, there was a lot of complaints for a number of years about the condition of the roadway
Absolutely.
in the North Stoughton region. So they're in the process now, the contractor, of doing the base work out here. And this was a challenging project from the start. Like up on Riverview, a lot of the utilities, all the poles, they had to move 45 telephone poles out of the way. So, and on top of that, all the gas services, all the water services, sanitaries, all had to be moved out of the roadway. And what you're seeing right now here is that they have about a third of the roadway finished with the base work. So we're hoping within the next month or so, all the base, by the end of July, that the base work will be finished. And then that come August, they'll be able to do the capping of the roadway. Maybe sooner, but who knows? But the other challenge, is the councilwoman knows, is Edison Township.
Yeah, this street is split between Edison and Piscataway down at the other end. So that way you have to deal with two separate entities with the project.
So one of the unique challenges that we had, given the fact that a third of the streets in Edison Township. So at that time, Edison had private water service out here, and they had a referendum saying they want a public utility. And we got caught in a legal limbo out here where they didn't have an actual Edison Water Company to deal with the water lines. So we worked it out with the contractor to install it it stalled the project for a couple of months out here. So I know this has been going on for almost a year and change out here. So.
And the sidewalks on this street, to be able to walk on this street prior to the sidewalks was quite a hazard for any of the residents trying to walk here. So if people have children and families, to be able to walk on this street is a huge improvement.
Yeah. So the time frame is hopefully by the end of August, this will be finished. And then we, in theory, should be out to bid come September, October on Justice Street. And then basically we're going to go out and do Ethel Road. So we'll keep you abreast on that. I want to thank you for watching on Piscataway, and I just want to remind the residents, just be careful about the heat outside for the month of July, and be safe.